Guess what everyone just saw on Facebook, Maria announced, her voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. Looks like my darling husband's ex, Chloe, is still expecting someone else's baby. She shoved her phone in my face. There it was, Chloe's post, a picture of her and some guy named Jake, holding hands, beaming. Even though we can't be together as husband and wife, I'm still going to have your child, it declared. Underneath, I'd already typed my comment, fueled by a cocktail of hurt and fury. If you're so in love, maybe it's time to kick me to the curb and shack up with him. My finger hovered over the post button, then I slammed it down. Done. No hesitation, no second thoughts. My life was about to change. First call, the ritzy postpartum care center I'd booked upstate. Practically a 5-star hotel for new moms. Cancelled. Next, the Women's Health Clinic in Manhattan. All appointments gone. Then, the nursery. Mountains of pastel-colored baby gear stacked high in the spare room of our Brooklyn Heights apartment. Everything went. Returned what Bloomingdale's would take back. The rest went to a women's shelter downtown. With each bag I hauled out, a weight lifted. By the time the room was empty, I could breathe again. My phone buzzed. Liam. Dude, you free tonight? Need to vent. Perfect timing. I called up a bunch of the guys, Liam, Mike, Carlos, told them to meet me at O'Malley's on Court Street. I needed noise, laughter, anything to drown out the screaming silence Chloe had left in her wake. O'Malley's was packed. The usual Friday night crowd spilling onto the sidewalk. We grabbed a booth in the back, ordered a round of Guinness, and the stories started flowing. We were laughing, trading jokes for a few precious moments. Chloe and her bombshell Facebook post faded into the background. My phone vibrated again. My smile froze. Incoming call. Chloe. The bar noise seemed to vanish. My friends, noticing the shift, went quiet too. Maybe you should just head home, man, Liam suggested, his voice low, before she causes a scene. Yeah, we can wrap it up here, Mike chimed in. They were good guys, always had my back, even if Chloe had tried her best to poison them against me. Ever since I'd married Chloe, my friendships had taken a hit. She'd called Liam and Mike drunks, losers, blamed them for everything from my late nights at the office to a scratch on her precious Range Rover. Controlling? Understatement. But back then, I'd been too blind, too in love, or maybe just too stubborn to see it. Nah, I said, rejecting the call, forcing a grin. Forget her. Let's keep this going. You sure, man? Liam looked genuinely concerned. Positive, I said, maybe a little too forcefully. And actually, there's something I need to tell you guys. When Chloe gets back, I'm asking for a divorce. She won't be your sister-in-law anymore. Silence. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. They exchanged glances, uneasy, but no one said a word. My phone buzzed again. Chloe. This time I didn't hesitate. I hit answer. Juan Alvarez, you are unbelievable. Chloe's voice screeched through the speaker, sharp enough to cut glass. Ignoring my calls. If you ever do that again, you're sleeping on the couch for a month. I held the phone away from my ear, wincing. The guys were staring, mouths agape. She launched into a tirade, a familiar litany of complaints and accusations. Tell me, Juan, she demanded, why did you cancel the postpartum care center? If they hadn't called me to confirm, I'd still be in the dark. Are you even planning on being this baby's father? Because if not, don't worry. Plenty of other men would be thrilled to step up. My mind flashed back to the past year. When Chloe had announced she was pregnant, I'd been ecstatic. I'd treated her like royalty, catered to every craving, every whim. That postpartum center in Napa Valley, 10 grand a month, no questions asked. I loved her. Or I thought I did. I wanted her to feel cherished. But somewhere along the line, my devotion had become a weapon in her hands, a license to treat me like dirt. "Are you even listening to me?" Her voice snapped me back to O'Malley's, to the stunned faces of my friends. "Yes, Chloe, I'm listening," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, even. "What's the issue?" "The issue is you're going to fix it," she shrieked. "Rebook the center. Send me another $10,000. Jake and I want to stay here a few more days." Jake. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Jake, the guy in the Facebook picture, the father of her child, not me. Something inside me snapped. "Chloe," I said, the words tight, dangerous. "Have you lost your mind?" The moment those words left my mouth, Chloe exploded. "Juan Alvarez, what did you just say to me? Repeat that. If you're such a man, do you want me to file for divorce?" Divorce. Her trump card. The threat she'd wielded countless times. A nuclear option for even the smallest disagreement. Every time, I'd caved, apologized, taken the blame, bought her another designer handbag, another weekend getaway, anything to smooth things over, to keep the peace. I'd convinced myself that if I just yielded enough, we'd eventually find happiness. But happiness had always been just out of reach, a mirage shimmering on the horizon. This time, though, something was different. Something had broken. Maybe it was the Facebook post. Maybe it was her casual mention of Jake. Maybe it was just years of accumulated resentment finally bubbling to the surface. Whatever it was, I was done. I took a deep breath, the stale bar air filling my lungs. I raised my glass of Guinness. "Fine, Chloe," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Let's get divorced then." And I hung up, turned off my phone. Silence descended on our booth, thick and heavy. My friends were frozen, staring at me like I'd just sprouted wings. "Why are you all staring?" I asked, a slow grin spreading across my face. "Let's toast to my freedom." That broke the spell. Laughter erupted, loud and relieved. Glasses clinked. Guinness flowed. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely, truly happy, free. Back at the apartment, the silence was different now. It wasn't Chloe's angry silence. It was peaceful. I collapsed onto the bed, the buzz of alcohol and freedom mixing in my head. A heady cocktail. Years my life had revolved around Chloe's demands, her moods, her endless needs. She'd controlled everything, my time, my money, my friends, even my habits. I'd quit smoking for her, stopped drinking anything stronger than light beer, given her my entire paycheck every month, direct deposits straight into her account. I cooked, cleaned, managed the apartment, all so she could focus on her fitness, which apparently meant Pilates classes and brunch with her equally pampered friends. Somewhere along the way, she'd forgotten she wasn't royalty. The next morning, the pounding started, loud, insistent, rattling the windows of the apartment. At first, I thought it was construction, maybe some early morning work crew tearing up the street. But the banging continued, rhythmic, aggressive. My door. No need to guess who was on the other side. I took my time, deliberately slow, pouring myself a glass of water, watching the morning sun glint off the Chrysler building in the distance. The voices outside grew louder, angrier. "Juan Alvarez, open this door now!" Carla's shrill tones sliced through the morning quiet. Chloe's mother. "How dare you cancel the postpartum care and hospital appointments? Are you even human?" Her voice grated on my nerves, but I was used to it. Whenever Chloe and I had the slightest disagreement, Carla and Gustavo, her parents, would descend on me like vultures, ready to pick apart my character and defend their precious daughter. Finally, I opened the door. Furious faces. Carla, red-faced and puffing. Gustavo, his jaw clenched tight. Without a word of greeting, they shoved past me, barging into the apartment like they owned the place. "You'd better fix this immediately," Carla barked, pointing a manicured finger at me. "Sabrina is coming back tonight, and everything needs to be back in place." Sabrina. She couldn't even get her own daughter's name right. "Is she bringing Jake with her?" I asked, my voice cold. "What are you implying?" Carla snapped, her eyes narrowing. "Sabrina is coming back alone. Stop talking nonsense." "Defensive much?" "Oh, and I heard you got a $155,000 bonus at work," Gustavo added, his voice suddenly smooth, almost oily. "When are you going to give that to Sabrina?" I let out a short, humorless chuckle, shaking my head. Gustavo, always the businessman, always knew how to get straight to the point. My wallet. And Carla, always the enabler, ready to back him up. It was going to be a long day. "So, are you giving that money to my daughter?" Carla chimed in, her tone dripping with entitlement. "You must have misunderstood," I replied, my voice dry. "I'm asking Sabrina for a divorce." "Divorce?" The word hung in the air, a lead weight in the suddenly silent apartment. Carla's face contorted in shock. "Divorce," said out loud in front of Carla and Gustavo. Their immediate visceral reaction was almost comical. Carla actually stepped back, as if I'd slapped her. Gustavo, momentarily speechless, crossed his arms, trying to regain his authoritarian stance, though it was clear he hadn't expected this. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife, but I remained calm, meeting their gazes, unflinching. "You can't be serious, Juan," Carla finally stammered, incredulous. "Sabrina will never accept this." I laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Sabrina doesn't have a choice, Carla. She crossed every line. All of you did," Gustavo scoffed, trying to regain control of the conversation. "You're overreacting. Divorce? This is serious. You can't make such a decision in the heat of the moment. Think about your family. Think about your child." "My child?" I repeated, my voice rising for the first time. "Do you really want to talk about my child? Because as far as I know, Jake is his father, not me. Do you think I'm going to keep funding this charade, paying for everything while she parades around with him?" Carla tried to interrupt, to launch into another defense of her perfect daughter, but I raised my hand, silencing her. "I've spent years doing everything for Sabrina, worked tirelessly, handed over my paycheck every month, fulfilled every whim of hers. And what did I get in return? Betrayal, humiliation, and a family that thinks they can treat me like a walking ATM. This ends now." The silence that followed was deafening. Carla looked at Gustavo, pleading with her eyes, hoping he would say something, anything, to convince me to back down. But Gustavo remained silent, his face a mask of frustrated anger. Finally, he let out an exasperated sigh. "This is a mistake, Juan. One you'll regret." "The only mistake I made," I replied, my voice cold, "was not doing this sooner." Without another word, I walked to the door and opened it, signaling that it was time for them to leave. Reluctantly, They moved towards the door, Carla's eyes blazing with fury, Gustavo's face grim. But not without Carla issuing one last venomous warning. When Sabrina comes back, you'll regret all of this. She won't let you get away with it. I simply closed the door, the sound echoing in the suddenly quiet apartment. For the first time in years, I felt like I had some control over my life. And I wasn't going to let empty threats intimidate me. I spent the rest of the day purging Chloe from my life, piece by piece. Every trace of her, every reminder, had to go. Photos, ripped, shredded, tossed in the trash. Clothes, designer dresses, mountains of shoes, overflowing the closets, piled into garbage bags, destined for donation bins. Trinkets, perfume bottles, makeup palettes, jewelry boxes, swept off shelves and countertops, boxed up, ready to be banished. Everything that belonged to her, every object she'd touched, was packed into boxes and stacked near the door. When I was done, I stood in the middle of the apartment, surveying the wreckage of my marriage. But instead of sadness, instead of regret, I felt lighter. A massive weight lifted off my shoulders. The apartment finally felt like mine. Clean, empty, free. Later that day, my phone started buzzing again. Chloe. Calling, calling, calling. I ignored it. After several failed attempts, the texts started. At first, they were insults, venomous, laced with profanity. Then threats, vague promises of ruin and retribution. She'd make me pay for this. She'd destroy my life. I'd regret the day I was born. Eventually, the tone shifted, pleading, sobbing. She loved me, she said. It was all a misunderstanding. We could work through this, she begged. Just give her another chance. But I knew it was just another act, another attempt to manipulate me, to reel me back in. I ignored all the messages, blocked her number. I was done playing her game. I was determined to move forward no matter the cost. The following night, around 10, the violent knocking started again. Louder this time, more insistent. My heart pounded in my chest, but I wasn't surprised. I knew who it was. I opened the door. Chloe, of course, accompanied by her loyal attack dogs, Carla and Gustavo. Chloe's face was red with fury, contorted with rage. She didn't waste any time, launching into a tirade the moment the door swung open. Juan, what the hell do you think you're doing? How dare you treat me like this after everything I've done for you? I laughed, a short, sharp burst of sarcasm. What have you done for me, Chloe? You spent years using me as an ATM, as a servant, while you cheated on me behind my back. And now you have the audacity to come here and act like you're the victim. She tried to push past me, to storm into the apartment, but I raised my hand, stopping her cold. No, you're not crossing this threshold. Your things are there. I pointed to the boxes stacked by the door. And I'm going to ask you to leave now, before I call the police. Chloe froze for a moment, her eyes wide with disbelief. Then she recovered, her face hardening, and the yelling started again, louder, more vicious than before, calling me names, accusing me of being ungrateful, saying I deserved worse. Carla jumped in, echoing Chloe's accusations, claiming I was being unreasonable, hysterical, that I was ruining Chloe's life. Gustavo, unusually, remained silent, watching the scene unfold, his expression unreadable, almost concerned. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of shouting and accusations, Chloe seemed to deflate. She picked up the boxes one by one, her movements jerky and angry, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the apartment shook. Carla and Gustavo followed, shooting me looks of pure contempt as they retreated down the hallway. When the door finally closed and the silence returned, I felt exhausted, drained, but also relieved. It was over. Finally, truly over. In the days that followed, Chloe unleashed her fury. She hired a high-powered divorce lawyer, a shark in a suit, and filed a claim for alimony and division of assets, demanding half of everything, even though everything we had, the apartment, the savings, even the furniture, had been acquired through my hard work, my long hours at the office, my bonus checks. She started spreading rumors, whispering poison in the ears of our mutual friends, painting me as a cold, heartless monster, a cruel and calculating ex-husband who had abandoned his pregnant wife. But no matter how hard she tried, how many lies she spun, I was prepared. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Sarah, was a bulldog in the courtroom. She systematically dismantled Chloe's claims, refuted every accusation. And when the truth about Chloe's relationship with Jake and the paternity of her child came to light, Chloe's carefully constructed narrative crumbled. She lost most of the support she'd managed to garner. Even some of her own friends started to distance themselves. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. Chloe wasn't entitled to alimony, not a dime. She received a small temporary settlement, barely enough to cover a month's rent in Manhattan, and even that was limited to a few months. The final verdict was a relief, a validation. I was finally free. Legally, emotionally, completely free. For the first time in many years, I felt like I could start my life over, truly over, without Chloe, without the constant pressure to satisfy someone who was never content, who thrived on drama and manipulation. Looking back, I realized that every sacrifice I'd made, every compromise, every concession had been in vain. Chloe was who she was, and nothing I did, nothing I gave, would ever change that. But the pain, the humiliation, the years of emotional turmoil had taught me a valuable lesson. No matter how much you love someone, if that person doesn't respect you, if they treat you like you're disposable, you'll never be happy. You'll just slowly wither away until there's nothing left of yourself. With a renewed heart and a lighter spirit, I began planning my future. No more living for Chloe's approval, no more bending to her will. From that moment on, I would be the master of my own story. Months blurred into a year. The sharp edges of the divorce softened. The raw pain dulled to a dull ache, then faded almost completely. My life settled into a new rhythm, a steady, comfortable pace. I focused on my work, threw myself into new projects, traveled, explored new neighborhoods in the city, met new people, rediscovered passions I'd set aside during my marriage. Photography, hiking, live jazz at the village vanguard. Most importantly, I learned to set boundaries, to say no, to prioritize my own needs, my own happiness, and to never, ever allow anyone to trample on my dignity again. Looking back, I could almost be grateful for the ordeal with Chloe. Almost. It had been a brutal, painful lesson, but a necessary one. Her downfall, The unraveling of her carefully constructed life was a consequence of her own actions, her own choices. And while I hadn't set out to destroy her, to seek revenge, I had no qualms about defending myself, about protecting my own future. Life, as they say, gave me a second chance. And this time, I was determined to make the most of it, to build a life based on respect, honesty, and genuine connection. A life where I was the leading man, not just a supporting character in someone else's drama. Meanwhile, Chloe, Carla, and Gustavo continued to deal with the ruins of their own decisions, the fallout from their years of entitlement and manipulation. Justice, in the end, has a funny way of evening the score. And in this story, everyone, eventually, got exactly what they deserved.